With a whoosh, a firm hand suddenly shot out, grabbing the collar of the man about to strike. Harkins, still on the ground, looked up in astonishment. The stranger with flowing blonde hair and tanned skin let out a soft sigh of relief, giving a casual smile. Phew, hey pal, there's no need for physical violence like that. Unexpectedly grabbed, the thug spun around, roaring angrily. Who the hell are you? Are you on his side? The blonde man glanced down at Harkin, then shrugged indifferently. Not exactly. Lying on the ground, Harkin's eyes widened, astonishment clear on his face. A spark of recognition flickered in his mind as he observed the newcomer. That's him! Those muscles, and that bizarre fashion sense too. He couldn't mistake the rippling physique hidden beneath the flashy floral shirt and the sunglasses perched on that blonde hair. Above, the stranger maintained his self-satisfied, knowing smile.
Harkin was stunned. A name that couldn't be more familiar echoed in his mind. Mathador Shev, the top warrior from my previous life. But why is he here? Harkin mused, cold sweat beading on his forehead as he tried to comprehend this unbelievable presence. Wait! A sudden sharp shout rang out, interrupting Harkin's chaotic thoughts. With an annoyed "Tch!" the stranger spat a mouthful of saliva onto the ground in front of Mathador Shev with utter contempt. The thug, face contorted in anger, growled menacingly. Hey buddy, you'd best not interfere if you don't know him. He's the one who hit me first. Don't you know the saying, an eye for an eye? Mathador merely curved his lips into a slight smile, his expression utterly nonchalant and even somewhat amused by the opponent's aggression. He replied dismissively, "Ah ha ha, so that's how it is."
A fierce surge of crimson energy erupted violently, centered around Mathador Shev. He stood there, casually adjusting his shirt collar, exuding an arrogant self-confidence. The invisible pressure from the spreading aura left those nearby dazed. Harkin staggered back a few steps, clutching his head, his face contorted in shock. At the same time, the burly thug gaped in horror, eyes wide at the terrifying power that had just been unleashed. Amidst the chaotic scene, Mathador Shev smirked, a challenging smile on his face. Well then, he uttered in a raspy voice, since you just used your fist to strike my palm. His eyes suddenly turned icy cold, his pupils glowing blood red. He slowly clenched his fist, his fingers straining with a cracking sound. I should do the same, shouldn't I? Seeing the perilous situation, the two thugs broke out in a cold sweat. Sir, that's Mathador Shev. He's the guild master of Red Bulls, one of the top 30 guilds.
His reputation stemmed not only from his unparalleled might, but also from his fervent passion for battle. That was Mathador Shev. Cold sweat poured down his temples. The fat man stammered in extreme panic. What? Why would someone like that? Before he could finish, a firm hand landed on his shoulder. A deep voice, laced with malicious amusement, echoed from behind. So, what's your answer? The fat man trembled uncontrollably. He slowly turned around, greeted by Mathador's casual smile right next to his ear. Mathador's gaze, though lacking murderous intent, carried an invisible pressure that suffocated him. The fat man's face was as white as a sheet, his eyes wide and vacant with fear. Bending abruptly, he screamed in despair, "I'm sorry!" then quickly fled for his life. Mathador burst into hearty laughter, seemingly quite pleased. "Ha ha ha, I'm glad we could settle everything with words." Those around who witnessed the scene were stunned, whispering to each other in bewilderment. With words?
Mathador Shev friendly slung an arm over Harkin's shoulder, patting him lightly with a radiant smile. He spoke in a booming voice. Hey, are you all right? Don't mind guys like him. Before he finished, Mathador's large hand suddenly froze. Harkin shoved Mathador's hand off his shoulder. Huh? Mathador exclaimed in surprise, his eyes wide as he looked down. Harkin, who had been silently bowing his head until now, finally looked up. His eyes were sharp and cold beneath the hood's brim, his voice resolute and distant. From now on, you don't need to help me anymore. With those words, Harkin coldly turned and walked straight into the crowd, leaving Mathador Shev stunned with his hands still suspended in midair. Watching the receding figure of the young man in the white hoodie, Mathador could only utter a bewildered, huh? He scratched his head, a wry smile appearing on his lips as he mumbled, well, he's truly a cold guy. Meanwhile, Harkin continued to stride decisively forward. Damn it, he cursed inwardly through gritted teeth. In that moment, when Mathador's hand rested on his shoulder, Harkin had felt a terrifying surge of power. His palm trembled uncontrollably. He had been completely overwhelmed by the other man's aura. Clenching his shaking hand into a firm fist, Harkin tried to suppress the profound shock within his mind.
Hyrcan's face was etched with fury, his teeth clenched as he uttered a venomous vow. The next time we meet, I will be a completely different person. The promise of vengeance still echoed, but now Hyrcan sat alone in the dungeon. Jagged, rugged rock walls soared high, enclosing his solitary figure. Flickering light from torches randomly stuck into the rock face was the sole illumination, casting strange, dancing shadows upon the quiet, cold space. Amidst the eerie silence, Hyrcan sank into a stream of thoughts, recalling the bitter battle. I truly felt the power gap between us, he bitterly admitted. Shiru and Chev have comparable skill levels. To exact my revenge, I need to become stronger. The image of his foe with radiant blonde hair, bloodshot eyes, and a haughty smile suddenly appeared in his mind, fueling the flames of hatred. The grinding sound of his teeth resonated, a dry, harsh noise expressing the anger and iron will surging within his chest.
Suddenly, a thunderous roar echoed, tearing through the silence. The colossal ash tiger, with a body like carved stone and eyes blazing with malice, lunged at Hyrcan from behind with its maw wide open. But instantly, an eerie blue surge of energy erupted. The skeletal warrior shot towards the tiger like an arrow, landing a fatal blow to the monster's chest, creating a small energy explosion. Giving its opponent no chance to retaliate, the skeletal warrior spun, transforming into a deadly blue whirlwind, delivering the finishing blow. The ash tiger collapsed. Simultaneously, blue system notifications appeared. Skeletal warrior has slain ash tiger. Level up! A brilliant flash of light pulsed from the skeleton's eye sockets, signaling its completed power upgrade. The battle aura faded, returning the skeletal warrior to its somewhat diminutive appearance. It held its wooden staff, its blue eyes sparkling with expectation as it looked at Hyrcan, as if awaiting praise. However, Hyrcan was deep in his own thoughts, muttering, "It took 3 days to reach level 10, longer than I expected." Seeming to sense its master's indifference, the skeletal warrior suddenly drooped. It hung its head, its bony body exuding an air of dejection and disappointment. Noticing this sudden change, Hyrcan turned to look, his gaze revealing his confusion and surprise.
System messages continuously appeared in the virtual space, signaling the end of a phase. Congratulations, you have reached level 10. There are no more monsters in this training dungeon. Your novice emblem has been removed. Amidst a brilliant golden glow, Hyrcan smiled contentedly as the system began to deliver his rewards. A blue light enveloped his wrist, gradually coalescing into a familiar object. Finally done, he silently cheered, clenching his fist excitedly. The War Watch appeared, its high-tech face glowing exquisitely. Hyrcan looked at it, muttering to himself, stats, quests, maps, inventory, and even the messenger? These are all built-in features of the game. It's been a long time since I felt this way. A nostalgic yet confident smile crossed his face. Without a moment's hesitation, he commanded, "Status window." Immediately, a virtual blue information panel appeared. Level 10, Class Summoner. Title 1, Stats, Strength 3, Stamina 3, Intellect 5, Mana 5. Hyrcan clicked his tongue. Just as I predicted, the stats have been reset. Everything was proceeding according to his plan. Immediately after, a new notification window popped up, urging, "Please distribute your potential points." The point allocation screen appeared, ready for him to begin his path back to the top.
Hyrcan's eyes were half closed, his sharp gaze filled with contemplation. "This is my first time allocating stats. I must be very careful," he thought to himself. Normally, a summoner would focus on increasing energy or intelligence to optimize their magic. However, a challenging smirk appeared on Hyrcan's lips as he made a completely contradictory decision. All points will go into strength. As soon as he finished speaking, a radiant golden aura flared, enveloping his entire body. Pure power surged through every muscle fiber, an intense sensation that made his entire body taut. Immediately after, a system notification appeared. Strength has increased by 50. Total strength stat, 53. Hyrcan mumbled with a satisfied expression. He slowly clenched his hands, feeling the surge of physical power, a completely new and exhilarating sensation. Witnessing the entire scene, the skeleton warrior standing beside him was utterly dumbfounded. Its blazing blue eye sockets widened, and its bony jaw seemed about to drop to the ground in extreme astonishment at its master's insane choice.
The skeleton warrior sat huddled, its bony hands covering its face, letting out faint sniffles. Seeing this, Hyrcan frowned as he approached, his voice slightly annoyed. "What are you doing?" Without waiting for an answer, he slapped its head and spoke. I'm not giving up on becoming a necromancer, Herkin growled, his words both an explanation and a command. I'm trying to teach you. Even if I increase my mana and intelligence now, it won't significantly affect my playstyle. Conversely, if I increase my strength, I can teach you all the skills I had at my peak. Right now, I'm betting my life on your growth. The light in the skeleton's eye sockets seemed to glow brighter as it silently listened to its master's every word. Perhaps realizing his overly serious demeanor, Herkin blushed slightly, then softened his voice and gently patted the skeleton's shoulder. A shimmering drop of green light, like a tear, slowly rolled out from its eye socket. Anyway, you just need to focus on training, Herkin said, his voice now more relieved. He smiled confidently, giving a thumbs up. After all, there are still other ways to compensate for missing stats. The scene then shifted to a bustling road under the morning sun. Ahead stood a large building with ancient architecture, featuring a sign that clearly read Raid Association Figus Castle Branch.
In the dim light of the inn, a quest card shimmered with a promising glow, making Herkin quietly exclaim to himself, a brand new quest. However, the surrounding scene was utterly chaotic. A crowd of players were frantically jostling and pushing each other in front of the quest board. "Get out of the way, that's mine," one person yelled. Another retorted, "Dream on. I've been waiting since yesterday." Amidst the noisy scene, Herkin just stood with his arms crossed, an indifferent half-smile on his lips. He thought to himself, quests of this level are usually nothing great, but everyone's too eager, probably because they're all beginners. Detaching himself from the boisterous crowd, Herkin leisurely approached the quest giver's counter, an old man with a flowing white beard and a scar across his eye. He pulled his hood down slightly, revealing his sharp eyes, and then spoke. "I'd also like to take a quest. May I see the list?" The elderly man looked up in surprise, glanced at Herkin, then back down at the cards left on the table. He crossed his arms, his voice slightly skeptical. "All right, but all the quests here are quite tough. No one wants to take them. Are you confident?" Herkin bent down, carefully examining the discarded cards. He rested his chin in his hand, mumbling to himself, "It's true, they're all useless things. However, this is the time."
Herkin sported a self-satisfied smile, his spiky silver hair gently swaying. In his hand was an old-looking quest card. Found it, he thought to himself, a glint of triumph in his eyes. His gaze fixated on a specific quest on the bulletin board, one that seemed overlooked by everyone: exterminate all monsters near Bima Mountain. The requirement was to clear the monsters from the Bima Mountain cave for a meager reward of only 10 gold. Clearly, this was just a trivial low-level quest. At the quest counter, the NPC looked at Herkin with suspicion. "Are you sure you want to take this quest? It's just a low-level quest with a paltry reward of only 10 gold. Without a moment's hesitation, Herkin replied concisely but firmly, "Yes." Immediately, a blue system window popped up in front of him, confirming, "You have accepted a new quest." With a cold and calculating smile, Herkin mused over his plan, a cunning glint in his eyes. "Just by completing this seemingly boring quest before reaching level 15, I can obtain a super rare title called Prospect. You ask what's so good about it?"
Herkin pondered deeply. Possessing a title will help increase my stats. He scrolled through mundane titles like Amateur Mage, Despised by the Lamenting Wolves, or Apprentice Alchemist. They offered only negligible benefits, adding an insignificant 1 or 2 points of mana or intelligence, and especially this Prospect title. A mystical purple energy suddenly erupted fiercely around Herkin. His eyes gleamed as the power spread throughout his body. This title was unlike the others. It increases your stats by a percentage. A sharp, ambitious smile appeared on his face. Herkin clenched his fist, feeling the surging latent power. In other words, it will kickstart my career to become an overwhelmingly powerful character. Breaking free from his thoughts, he declared decisively, "All right." A resolute footstep echoed on the wooden floor, signaling a decision had been made. Now, Herkin stood under the bright sunlight of a city street. He looked around with confidence and readiness, then proclaimed, "Let's start with the equipment." The scene then shifted to a distant, rugged mountainous region known as the Bima Mountains. Gigantic, time-worn rock pillars soared into the clear sky, foreshadowing a challenging adventure that awaited ahead.
However, Herkin's face darkened and extreme rage flared in his eyes. He stood frozen in the grass, his whole body trembling as he looked down at his ridiculous outfit, a bizarre combination of a colorful clown suit and a pink hooded hat with long floppy rabbit ears. Even the shoes he wore were shaped like monstrous claws. He trudged into a gloomy forest where sunlight struggled to penetrate the dense foliage. Crows incessantly cawed, caw, caw, circling above his head and brazenly perching on his shoulders as if mocking his pathetic appearance. Finally, unable to endure the humiliation any longer, a silent, furious scream erupted in his mind. Damn it! The reason for this misery became clear. He recalled the moment he tried to buy decent leather armor, but the system window coldly displayed the message, insufficient funds. Herkin bitterly thought, after buying gear for the skeleton, I didn't have enough money left, so I just had to buy whatever I could, which led to this. After a moment of despair, a flame of determination ignited within him. Herkin sprang up, his face etched with resolve, despite the silly rabbit ears flopping on his head. He gritted his teeth and made up his mind. All right, I just need to complete the quest quickly to get new gear first.
I'll deal with this as quickly as possible. Herkin's voice echoed resolutely through the dense forest. He shot forward like an arrow, his oddly dressed figure gliding past the tightly packed trees. His speed blurred the surroundings, leaving only the distant path ahead. Suddenly he stopped. An unusual silence enveloped the area. His gaze fell upon the ground, where fresh bloodstains, not yet dry, were splattered. A blood-stained hand tremblingly reached out from the bushes, twitching in pain. Lying in the mud, a severely wounded man looked up with vacant eyes, his breath ragged. He gasped in despair, "Help me, please." Just then, a chilling, eerie cackle began to echo from the shadows of the thickets. From the darkness, 3 figures slowly emerged, each bearing a cruel smile. Their eyes gleamed with sadistic pleasure as they witnessed the victim's pain and despair.